And God said, behold, look, see this? Take a look at this. God said, behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree in which there is the fruit of a tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for meat. And then he goes on to say, even animals are supposed to eat that. So God said, guess what? I made this man and woman, no sin, no nothing. And he said, you're vegetarians.
Well, that's kind of where Rod and our journey began, to really look at what foods can be a positive or a negative towards our bodies. And I would like to share my firsthand experience was September 30th of last year. And then I already had in 2011 the defibrillator, and had been going to see my heart doctor on a regular basis. And so when I went to him, I think it was like a month later, and they always do a reading of the defibrillator, and they can tell exactly what has happened from the last time I was there. And so when September the 30th, I had an episode at the when we went to the Notre Dame game, and that's where it really all began. And I mean, really got sick and dizzy and didn't, know what was going on, and but had done a lot of walking that day. Did not realize that damage had been done to my heart until I went to my doctor's visit, and he asked me specifically, and that was just kind of mind-boggling for me. He said asked me specifically, where was you on September the 30th at 7 o'clock in the evening? At that point, I didn't remember. I got my phone out, looked at the calendar date, and realized that was the day I was at Notre Dame and had that episode. And he told me I needed surgery because damage had been done to my heart. And so first thing I thought about was I needed to probably lose weight because I've gained a lot. So I think, well, I'll start there. But while I was at work, Rod got on the internet as he does and did research, and came up with, I don't know how many doctors, 20, 25 doctors that were all saying the same thing, that our health is related directly to what we eat and what we put in our mouth, not realizing that's critical. And the thing that, for me, they didn't talk about just a pill or pills, but how it can, heart disease and anxiety and diabetes and cancer, how a lot of these things can be reversed, not just take a pill for the rest of your life. And so that I mean, for me, how can you deny? And I thought to me it's much easier than constantly going into surgery, being cut on. That was the perspective that I came away with concerning that. And so when I went back to my doctor, January, whatever the date was, a couple of Fridays ago, but I went in with such a peace, knowing that because we had changed the way we eat, and basically cut out meats, dairy products, a lot of, and that dairy was my main. The food that I ate the most, I ate it. That was my morning breakfast, and so. But I realized, to me, health and living and being not only just health, but being healthy while you live, to me was more important than some food that we call tasty, especially if it's damaging your health. And I thought, well, I don't want to continually be, every time I go to the heart doctor, he's talking about, cutting on me. I've been there and done that. So, this is just another positive option. And so once I listened to all these doctors, it wasn't hard for me to make the decision to change. It's like, food is not that important. And the scripture that, would come to my mind is not life more important than food. Well, for me, my life is much more important than the food that I eat. And so, just to make that change, as I said, it wasn't hard.
Yeah. And over the years, since I've been here, when I came here, Geneva was eating basically salad, but she had some health issues she didn't know that accelerated, and it ended up with her having a heart defibrillator and stuff. But excuse me. But from time to time, she said, "Oh, look, I want to go back to eat salad," and I would say, "Okay." Since I do most of the cooking, we would go back to salad for a while, and then I start integrating and fall back. But this time, because I was at Notre Dame football game with her, when she almost got faint and couldn't walk and stuff, but we did end up walking out of there. And she said, "Okay, look, I really got to do salad. I got to lose this weight now." And that's when I did the research, because I was actually there for that episode and I saw how serious it was. So when I researched salad, it got a lot deeper than salad. It was like vegetarian all the time, and not just vegetarian, but you got to cut out all the oils, the eggs, you got to cut out dairy, poultry, all of it, because it's not just your heart. The heart cardiologist is the heart, but guess what? It's all of the veins throughout your body. Your veins get clogged up, and that's what strains the heart. But I don't know if the cardiologist tells you that part. He just says your heart is damaged. You got more veins than you got heart. Your heart pumps through the veins. And what happens is meat and other dairy products and stuff like that, they actually clog the artery. And so when I researched it and found this, it's a movement out there called plant-based eating, of doctors that are doing things for free to save people's lives. They're not getting paid. And they tell them the truth about nutrition. That people that eat plant-based, in other words, like God said in Genesis, vegetables and fruits, nuts, when you do that, you live longer. Your body heals itself, And instead of like a doctor, like if you have a headache and you take an aspirin for that, most of the medicines, or a lot of the medicines, that doctors give you are sort of like aspirins that concentrate on your muscle ache or this ache and that ache, but they're not curing you. I had shortness of breath, and I was suffering from that, and when I would bend down, it felt like maybe arthritis in my bones. It would actually hurt my knees to bend down. And I heard the devil say, "Oh, that's just old age," but I didn't believe it. And since we start eating vegetables and fruit and cooking these delicious meals, vegetarian meals, I don't have muscle aches anymore. I can bend down. I don't have respiratory issues anymore. I'm not out of breath. It works, and it works. And that's what we like to share with you. Because I, for one, need you guys to live. I don't know what your other children say about it, what your brothers or sisters or friends or whoever, but I love you, and I would like you to be here when Jesus comes. You can make it. And I'd like you to hold on to life. I'd like you to feel better each and every day, because I've used my body and I've tried it. Not tried it, but I still do it. Don't we do it?
Yeah, every day.
Every day. Every day, some kind of vegetarian meal. And I don't know. How would you explain just the feeling of it?
More energy, and one of the things that Rod and I both have experienced for ourselves, and they say, just by changing that, you automatically lose the weight. The weight just goes because, and we both of us have experienced that, and it's really been amazing how fast we lost it without even trying. It was no effort and really involved, other than changing the things that we were putting in our mouth and eating. And it's not even a sacrifice. It's a lifestyle change.
And I feel so good, that I forgot to mention that I had got up to 267 pounds at my highest, and it just kept creeping up. And I said, no, I got to, I was just feeling that weight on me, and now I'm like 222. From 267 to 222 and without effort. I'm not dieting to lose weight. I changed my diet for the inside, for my cardiovascular system, my blood vessels, for my bones and everything. All of the parts of your body need certain nutrients that's found in vegetables, and they don't need the extra fat and the cholesterol and the other things that's found in meat and dairy. It's as simple as that. It's like taking mud and putting it in the gas tank of your car, or putting cheap gas in your car. Remember back in the day with a clank clank? And that's what people do when they eat a lot of meat and stuff. Really eat any meat at all. So we're going to share some of the information that we had, some information that got us started, got us fired up, and hope that you take it to heart. Mommy, you're an excellent nurse, and I know you know quite a bit about nutrition. You used to tell us to do certain things, and one thing, like I said, keeps echoing to me whenever I even think about something sweet. My mother used to say, eat a banana. And guess what? We got it right here. There. Bananas right here. We keep plenty of bananas and other fruits and vegetables. And just the body is a matter of fact, let me share this. We read Genesis, and then we're going to go to the movie. Genesis, is where God said, guess what? In the beginning, when I made you, you're a vegetarian. You're a vegetarian creature. You're not an omnivore. You're a vegetarian. You're an herbivore. Chapter 2 and start at verse 14. Now watch what James says. What does it profit, my brother, though a man say he hath faith and have not works? Can faith save him? If a brother or sister be naked or destitute of daily food, and one of you say unto them, depart in peace, be warmed and filled, notwithstanding, you give them not those things which are needed to the body, what does it profit? See? And you may have food in your refrigerator, but that's not really what you need for your body. As long as you keep eating as you're eating, you're going to have the pills to counteract what that food is doing to your body. And that's exactly what you're doing. The pills are not counteracting a disease, they're counteracting your diet. And the diet is slowly catching up. It'll never win. You'll never win eating the same way. So, what'd you like to say?
I would like to say when I did, I don't know if I shared, but when I went back for my doctor's appointment, and as I said, I had peace when I went in there knowing that I was not going to have this surgery. So when I met with the doctor and he looked at, the results from the test that they ran from the defibrillator, all the tests that they ran, they found nothing. There was no reasons, for me to have surgery. And so the only thing he said to me, he said, well, come back in 3 months and I'll check you again. But I know that as I continue, as Rod and I continue the way we are already eating, the results are only going to get better. Yep. So, I'm knowing, I am not going to have any type of heart surgery.
Yep. And like Geneva said, the weight loss, I've lost 40 pounds. And the focus of the diet is not weight loss. Weight loss is what they call
bonus,
it?
Really.
A bonus, an after effect, or a side effect.
Mm-hmm.
Weight loss is just a side effect. Could you imagine? Instead of focusing on I gotta lose weight, focus on your overall health, and the weight loss is a free bonus, like he said. Enjoy the film, enjoy the instruction, and I hope you share it with Leah and Preston and Duke and all of the acreages, okay? Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, that's a good one.
Often when I lecture, I'll show a slide of doctors busily mopping up the floor on a sink that's overflowing, but nobody's turning off the faucet. And to a much larger degree than we had once realized, the underlying causes, turning off the faucet, if you will, are the lifestyle choices that we make each day.
The basic reason why a person comes down with cancer or any other disease And that's because the biological terrain, the culture medium, if you will, that any disease will grow in, is not functioning properly. It's conducive to growing a cancer cell, for example. Conventional medicine looks at the tumor and says, okay, that's a disease. I don't. I look at the tumor and say, that's a symptom of the disease. The disease is much deeper, and what I work at is the root cause.
People often ask me for my kids age 9 and 10, do they eat the way that you eat? Well, they're 9 and 10, they don't have much of a choice to eat some of the things that we eat. I said, but I tell them a simple fact. Have you fed the good guys or the bad guys today? If you haven't fed the good guys, the bad guys are going to win out.
I'm an avid runner and bike rider, and I've seen many of the people that are about my age and are built like me that are active runners and riders who end up with heart problems. And it kind of drove home a point to me that you can't out-exercise a bad diet.
In a society where cholesterol is considered normal if it's under 200, where 50% of heart disease is discovered at the time of sudden death, it's not surprising that by the age of 15 we have evidence of heart disease from the food we eat. Plants are so powerful, they're a lot more powerful than the drugs in your medicine cabinet. I want people to focus on the food.
Coronary artery disease is nothing more than absolutely a toothless paper tiger that need never ever exist. And if it does exist, it need never ever progress. This is a benign foodborne illness.
Food is so tied to our culture. Our ceremonies, our rituals are all associated with food. We celebrate with food. We even mourn with food. And it's fascinating. We'll meet after a funeral and we'll be talking about the person who's no longer with us, and we'll be eating the same food that put them in the grave in the first place. We're just not mindful about the whole relationship we have with food.
You're never going to get deficient of fat in your diet. You know, the Irish in 1822 ate a diet that was almost completely composed of potatoes. 7% of their calories were from fat. They had diabetes rates of about 2 per million. Compared with the American numbers that we're getting right now, would suggest that the one thing people don't need to worry about is getting their dietary fat percentage too low. There's no hospital ward for people who haven't eaten enough fat, and there are plenty of hospital wards for people who've eaten way too much fat.
Look, do you want to have a heart attack or not? You can go ahead with this risk hanging over your head, like carrying a live hand grenade in your pocket, ready to explode at any minute, or you could diffuse it. It's up to you. But if you really want to diffuse it, it takes an aggressive nutritional change. You can't just make moderate changes in your diet. We have an unprecedented opportunity in human history right now, because nutritional science has made such incredible advances in the recent years, in the last 10 or 15 years. We have enough information now to give people the opportunity not to have a heart attack, not to have a stroke. If you want not to get breast cancer, not to get prostate cancer, not to get colon cancer, you can have that opportunity. Nutritional science has made such advances, we really have the tools at our disposal to almost wipe out these cancers. But the problem is, nobody's taking advantage of the science.
As an orthopedic surgeon, I think it's really tragic what the standard American diet does to the body. And I've asked the Eating You Alive crew to come in and document surgery. I deal with inflammation all the time in my patients, and the standard American diet feeds that inflammation. And so you can turn off the inflammation if you go to a whole food, plant-based diet, and you can reverse the degeneration that occurs in our bodies as we age. Hippocrates is kind of given the acknowledgement as being the father of medicine. He's actually also the father of shoulder surgery. He was born in 460 BC, described a surgical procedure that we still do somewhat of a variant of today. But he said, in effect, there are two things: to know and to believe one knows. To know is science, to believe one knows is ignorance. And I added to believe one knows is insanity, because I believed I knew what was healthy and it almost killed me. Now I know what is healthy, I know the science, and I know the science behind why plants are so healthy.
Exercise and activity is an important part of good health. But we can't say the lack of exercise is the major cause of the heart attack epidemic and the cancer epidemic and having a nation of sick people with medical care costs that can't be maintained because we're killing ourselves with food.
The most important controllable factor we have to save planet Earth from global warming, it's our food. Yes, we need to all be driving around in electric cars. We need to properly insulate our homes and get solar panels. That's going to take 2, 3, 4 decades. When you realize more than half of the global warming gases are produced by livestock production, you go, well, that's my food, I can change that.
If people were told that these medications, you don't get them for free, you pay a price for using medications. And they work as a permission slip. They enable people to think because their numbers look better, they're okay, while the underlying pathology advances day after day. So in a sense, they give people a false sense of security that leads them to give them permission to keep eating the same diet that caused the problem to begin with. And the inevitable consequence is their disease gets worse and worse and worse. With the right information, more people would choose nutrition as the avenue of getting well and not drugs.
I dropped my blood pressure from about 128 to 95. And as well, my total cholesterol went from 206 to 130. And my bad cholesterol dropped from 106 to 70. There's no medication that we use that can achieve that. This was in 4 weeks. So that really encouraged me to keep following a plant-based diet.
Americans, Europeans are being poisoned by these animal foods, beef and chicken and pork and fish and crab and lobster. And the other large category of poison is vegetable oil, like olive oil and corn oil, safflower oil, all these oils. And they're being poisoned. They get heart disease and obesity and breast cancer and rheumatoid arthritis and horrible bowel problems and everything like that. I take care of hundreds of these people myself as a doctor. I just take away their food poison.
How many people have had their loved ones die from preventable disease? Heart disease is our #1 killer, yet it can be prevented, treated, reversed without drugs, without surgery, with diet and lifestyle change, particularly diet. A whole food plant-based diet is more powerful than anything we have in medicine when it comes to some of these chronic diseases. We have tremendous power over our health destinies. But, we have to, take personal responsibility and actually do it. If we wait for the system to catch up, it may be too late. I started my journey as soon as I got out of my postgraduate medical training. I kind of went on the road. My goal was to speak at every medical school in the country. I didn't want another doctor to graduate without this knowledge. I kind of wanted a whole new generation of physicians with this information. But then I realized, why don't you just take it to people directly? I mean, you don't have to wait for your doctor to clean up their diet. We can take charge of our own health. We can take personal responsibility for our own health.
Industry has been so strong and so effective that the new dietary guidelines, they're called, for 2015, as they stand right at this moment, say there's no limit in the amount of fat you can eat. Cholesterol is no longer considered a harmful, quote, nutrient. You eat as much cholesterol as you want. That's what the meat and the dairy industry have accomplished so far. That's why we are here today. It's not because of the truth. We have truth. We have success. They got the money.
The U.S. Department of Agriculture, whose mandate is to promote agricultural products. Eat less saturated and trans fatty acids. Now that's wink, wink, nudge, nudge, code for eat less, meat and dairy. And that's the sources of saturated fat, particularly cheese and chicken in this country. But they can't come out and say, eat less meat, eat less dairy. They would get hammered. Money talks in Washington.
The focus on cancer seems to be early detection. I would like to see Breast Cancer Prevention Month. Start teaching women what are the factors in your lifestyle, in your diet, that influence whether you're going to get breast cancer or not. But instead, we talk about early detection. Well, early detection's fine, but why not prevent something? Instead, it's like, Keep eating the way you're doing. Keep doing the things that influence breast cancer in a negative way, but we're going to detect it earlier. That just isn't right.
Don't let your culture hold your heart hostage. I really believe that diet is the primary way that we need to change things. Based on all of the incidents of just hypertension, diabetes, and obesity that occurs when you eat animal products versus vegetable products. Not just risk factors, but mortality is really dependent on what the diet has.
As a physician, I needed to take patients from a place where they were sick and try to make them well again. And that really only comes with changing and transforming one to a different lifestyle that incorporates unrefined whole plant foods.
You know, we started out to do a study for diabetes. And our approach is to really bring in the plant-based foods. But in the course of this study, what you discover is here's a woman who says, not only is my diabetes a whole lot better and I've lost a lot of weight, but my arthritis is gone. Why did that happen? Or here's a man who says, my erectile dysfunction went away. Which, by the way, these are sometimes bigger motivators than the diabetes themselves. But what we discover is when you're putting the right fuel in your tank, a lot of things get better. There are genes for diabetes. There are genes for blood pressure. There are genes for heart disease. But those genes aren't dictators. You know, the genes for blue eyes, those are dictators. They give orders, you're going to have blue eyes. The genes for diabetes are like committees. They make suggestions, and you can argue with them. You can say, I don't think I'm going to have diabetes because I'm going to change my diet and my lifestyle, and I'm going to push those genes away. And you can do that. And that is true for a surprising range of conditions, from diabetes to certain forms of cancer to even Alzheimer's disease, we believe. These are things where we can shift that balance, and we can shift it dramatically.
During that 24 hours there in the hospital, a lot of thinking was transpiring. What I was getting ready to lose, relationships, futures, dreams, were all getting ready to be lost. We went home on a Friday. For some reason, this movie, Forks Over Knives, came back in my head. And I thought, I think I might need to go watch this again. By 10:30 that evening, we're in our kitchen, and we're emptying pantries, refrigerators, freezers, totally out. And that was the beginning of my journey to go plant-based with my life.
I've come to the farm as a doctor because I really believe it's important to consider the way food is grown. Moreover, I think that we are entering a time in human history where if we don't pay attention to the way we treat the earth and pay attention to what we take out of the earth, future generations will not be sustained by the earth.
As a primary care doctor, we see a large range of all the illnesses. I feel particularly privileged to enter at the beginning with these patients and have the opportunity to remediate these illnesses with the plant-based, unrefined whole foods plan.
It's not uncommon for people to get well through a good lifestyle and plant food diet and stay well. And people always say, well, what do you die from? You know, because we're always expecting people to die of heart disease, cancer, pneumonia, Alzheimer's, but people just die of old age.
We have about 60,000 miles of blood vessels in our body. So it's no wonder that when we eat more healthfully, it's good for literally every square millimeter of us. And as a point of reference, the circumference of the Earth is about 24,000 miles. I've never seen anything come close to the breadth and depth of benefits that a plant-based diet provides. I mean, we literally have patients crying tears of joy in our office because they feel so much better. Nobody cried tears of joy, when I write them a prescription for a cholesterol-lowering medication.
Within a couple of hours, sugar causes measurable inflammation inside of our artery walls. It suppresses our immune system, and it's specifically the natural killer cells that help us to fight infections. And that can suppress our immune system for 4 to 5 hours. So if we kind of understand this, Americans having sugar-based breakfast, sugar-based lunch, and sugar-based dinner,
They're suppressing their immune system throughout the course of the day, making themselves more susceptible to these infections that we encounter.
What we should be talking about is bone physiology. How do I have healthy bones? And not really be talking about the calcium mineral itself. I think that dairy calcium has kind of been made into a myth that if I eat cheese or I drink milk and have a good calcium intake from dairy, that I'll have strong bones. And that's actually not been proven in the literature at all. Our peak bone density is achieved at age 25, and then we go downhill from there. And so when I meet people who are 80 years old, they already have osteoporosis, and they're already at risk for fracture. So the optimal time for someone to adopt a healthy diet is really when they're young, and to make a lifestyle choice early on, because the health impacts are felt much later on in life.
In our research, for example, we showed 40 years ago, we could turn cancer on and off. That's why that idea was turned out to be so prominent. Turn it on by giving them animal protein. Turn it off, take it away, or replace it with plant protein. Plant protein didn't do that. So cancer is a process that can be reversed. All we need to do is take a look at nature. Nature does a pretty good job taking care of things.
In general terms, we say follow the money. There are companies and there are individuals who are looking for an edge, and it really doesn't matter to them what people eat, so long as they're buying it from them.
We have so many patients with heartburn problems. And if I can just tell them to give up the dairy and the meat just for 3 to 4 weeks, and they're going to notice the changes, and the heartburn is going to disappear, and they're not going to need their Prilosec or their Tagamet or their Zantac or any of these types of medications anymore. Millions of dollars are spent on this every year. It's just sad because it can be prevented so easily.
Switch to eating plants. It's a healthy solution. You're going to feel better. You're going to live longer. You'll have more sex drive. You know, your life completely changes. And at the same time, you've just cut your carbon footprint by 2/3.
Ultimately, it doesn't matter why you do it, because it's a win-win-win all the way across the board.
Boom.
Bam.
I think the most important thing we can do is start learning to be more compassionate and loving. No animal wants to be hurt or killed. So once we start understanding and be more sympathetic and empathetic to, what our actions in life cause, and I think once we start understanding that all the decisions we want to make them based on love and kindness, and that will be very easy to decide what to eat then.
This is not entirely new information. It's new in the sense we have much better data and much better ways of communicating, if you will, and measuring things. But it's kind of an old idea. And the most important part of this idea, I think, is just the mere fact that we can take a group of people, anyone, we can put them on this diet, whole food, plant-based diet, and in 1 week's time, certainly 10 days' time, we can see dramatic drops in blood cholesterol levels, which tends to relate to or associate with heart disease. It also relates to cancer too. We see triglycerides in the blood come down like this. We see blood pressure problems begin to resolve themselves. And we don't need statistics to evaluate that information.
I don't think most people do know about the numbers that are involved here. If every day 3,000 or 4,000 people were dying on the same airline, that airline would be shut down immediately. But every day we have thousands of people dying silently, relatively, with cancer, heart disease, stroke, and diabetes, and no one's saying a word.
Oh gosh, the first time cooking without oil, which is funny because I would just pour it on, and my husband would actually say, "Stop, it's expensive." So and I was like, what am I gonna do without it? And so one day I used vegetable broth, and I actually was amazed that the food tasted better. The onions were sweeter, and oil coats your tongue, and so you just don't get as much flavor as you do when you stop cooking with oil. And then I started experiencing a lot of health benefits from stopping with the oil, and I was sold. I think moderation is a myth. It's a lie we tell ourselves to feel better about a choice we know isn't good for us. And I'm not saying you can't ever have a treat or go out in a while, but it's sort of like a smoker. You can't just have one cigarette once a week. The only way to sort of free yourself from the addiction to all of this processed food that just really just makes you so crazy for it is to abstain from it. If you then go back to them, they don't taste good to you. It's too salty, it's too sugary, and you feel awful after you eat it, and you're like, oh, That's why I don't eat that way anymore.
Hispanics have a high percentage of diabetes. So I was basically beginning to kind of accept the fact that, hey, this is just my destiny. This is where I've seen my family all go through it. I even asked my doctor, I said, when I began to take my insulin shots, I said, hey, doc, will I ever get off this insulin? And he flat out told me, no, you're going to be on insulin the rest of your life. We adopted this lifestyle on December 3rd of 2011. Not quite 60 days later, I was off all 5 of my medications. So when my wife and I adopted a whole foods plant-based lifestyle, we basically changed the trajectory of my family's future.
There are genes for diabetes. There are genes for blood pressure. There are genes for heart disease. But those genes aren't dictators. You know, the genes for blue eyes, those are dictators. They give orders, you're going to have blue eyes. The genes for diabetes are like committees. They make suggestions, and you can argue with them. You can say, I don't think I'm going to have diabetes because I'm going to change my diet and my lifestyle, and I'm going to push those genes away. And you can do that. That is true for a surprising range of conditions, from diabetes to certain forms of cancer to even Alzheimer's disease, we believe. These are things where we can shift that balance, and we can shift it dramatically.
When I had the high blood pressure, the blood pressure meds had side effects on me. So then they gave me other medicine to take care of the side effects. They wouldn't stop the other med. My doctor would say, well, you got to be on blood pressure med because you could have a stroke. And I was like, well, this is making me not feel right. My stomach's wrong. I'm tingling in my hands. And she said, oh, well, take this, and then take that, and take this. And what I found was, it was never ending. I would get up in the morning and take a handful of pills, and I felt like I was doing it and hoping for the best. 3 months into going plant-based, I was off all meds. 18 years of meds, 3 months, no meds. I don't feel deprived at all. And in all of my other times that I tried to lose weight, I always felt deprived. I felt like I was missing something. I was starving. It wasn't sustainable. This is sustainable. This is long term. I'm not on a diet, it's a lifestyle change. At 43 years old, I am free. I spent a decade and a half trapped. My body, I thought, was my tomb. This is where I'm gonna be. I have no way out, there's no escape. And then to find out that not only can I escape, but I can come out on the other side like a whole different person. Losing the weight, finding a plant-based diet, gave me freedom. Freedom that all the other fad diets and gadgets and even my doctor didn't give me.